episode 8. That noise was our cat, my cat, Quirky Noodles, making a fuss over there as she tends to do.
Quirky Noodles?
Quirky Noodles. Well, this is what happened with that. We got her and we named her Quirky because she was, she's cute, and Quirky seemed like a cute name. And also we have the show. And then Naomi was holding her, and she's just like kind of just flailing about like kind of like a noodle. And she's like, we should have named her Noodles. I was like, yeah, that would have been cute. Like, why don't we just call her Quirky Noodles? And so she's Quirky Noodles now.
Wow.
It's a cute name. I like it. Quirky Noodles. That's the name of our cat. So, welcome to Quirks, episode 8. Today's topic is, could this be the end of the world? For good reason. And also, just as a note, we are moving some of the sections around today because of the nature of our topic. So, we've got my music section, we've got our Craigslist ads, we've got What the Fact, we've got news, we've got our main topic, of course, which is all the crazy shit that's happening in the world right now in terms of natural disasters. So I'll jump right into the music section.
Yeah.
All right,
awesome.
Cool.
Let's go.
So the first thing that I wanted to show you guys actually is a band that I've been really, really into, and they're kind of up and coming, but they're super talented. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of this band before, but have you heard of Knower? Like to know,
no.
Knower. Well, these guys are super talented. It's this guy and this girl, and I forgot their name specifically, but I'm just going to play this one. I'm going to play a couple videos. They did this Lady Gaga sort of. I'm going to let this ad go here. They did this Lady Gaga medley cover thing, all electronic, and it's really, really impressive. So
that sounds awesome.
Let me see. Let me skip the ad here. Okay, I'm going to turn this audio back up, and I'm going to make this big, and let's play it. Oh, and I've got to turn. Gosh darn it! It's always something. I swear to God.
Sounds great so far.
I know, right? I'm trying, man. I'm trying.
They really capture silence.
So she sings all these parts. Those are all Lady Gaga songs, all blended together. He's triggering all that stuff.
She sings all these parts?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Watch.
Didn't you say it was a duo?
They bring in those two. Are the guy playing drums and the girl who sings are the duo, but they have other musicians now they're collaborating with.
That's awesome. Costume change.
Right?
Love it.
They're so creative and they're so musically talented. This gets better.
Their music videos are cool too.
I know, totally. So I just want to. I'm going to stop this one video. So they mostly have been doing like the electronic stuff, but now there's actually such great musicians. They can actually all play instruments and they're really good. They actually just put a live band together. And Quincy Jones, you all know who Quincy Jones is, right? He's the guy who produced Michael Jackson's Thriller. He's been a prolific and an incredible producer for a long time. He's probably in his 60s now. He actually like found these guys and has taken them under his wing, which is super cool because they're so good. And I just want to play this other video.
So they can tour too then.
Well, this is their live band. This is them with now all live, no electronic. Check this out.
What's the tempo? 1, 2, 1, 2.
So they not only can do this in the electronic realm, they can also play it live.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's so good.
Are mustaches okay now?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Are the just mustaches okay?
They're so tight.
Good bass player.
Yeah, it's awesome. It sounds like it's to a like on the grid. It's like perfectly timed.
It's good.
And they're all just playing this in their hallway.
Yeah, that's like a cramped space. This is awesome.
Yeah.
I like it.
Anyway, if you
Not a
haven't,
bad sound for a hallway.
it's incredible. Like if you haven't heard of Knower, it's basically Knower. Do a Google search. All of their stuff's incredible. They're gonna be huge. They're just very, very talented. And I'm
He's calling it now.
super stoked on these guys. The next thing I want to talk about is a little bit of a geeky thing. Profi, you know that Roland's been putting out all of these boutique recreations of like the 808 and the 909 and the 303 and
And now the D50, right?
Yes. So this is a synth that I grew up on. I guess I want to say in the late 80s, early 90s. And now there is a boutique recreation of the D50. I'm not going to like spend too much time on this. I just wanted to put
I
that
grew
out
up on
there.
it too. I remember it in commercial music in high school. There was one D50 and two DX7s.
Oh,
And
man,
and I would grab them all and hide them in a room and then lock the door so I could learn how to make music with computers while all the guitar players in the other room just sat around and babbled. For class.
Right? Yeah, the DX7 and D50 definitely like two of my childhood keyboards. So it's kind of cool that they're putting that out. Moving on.
I wish they had, one quick thing.
Oh, yeah, sure.
I wish they had updated the interface to not be that little window.
Well,
they really
right.
went for authenticity, right? But the editing of that thing sucked.
I don't know for certain, but I have to imagine they're going to come up with some sort of like editor that you can use
Plug
on
it
on
into your
your
computer
or
computer.
something.
You know what I mean?
They must. I hope so. But I was just looking at it going, well, it's cool that it looks like one, but
Yeah, I find it unlikely though that they're going to let people in 2017 edit sounds in a complex way on a little LED screen. That doesn't seem very. It seems kind of
Exactly.
like going backwards. Anyway, moving forward, I have another article that I read, and it's not a new article, but it's some stuff that I've been pondering over the years. This one is interesting. Is music the key to success? Will you bring this up, Connor? Basically, this article is about people who are successful people, and there's a strong correlation to success and people who have learned to play music.
I gotta learn an instrument.
Right,
I was
and
trying to learn the accordion yesterday.
And that's cool.
Yeah.
Accordion is not an easy instrument
It's
to
not
play.
at all.
Yeah, it's great. But this is really interesting because it talks about the correlation. Oops, my microphone fell. The correlation between successful people and just in terms of the way that the brain works. If you have learned to play music, it's likely that you have created neural pathways to allow you to do other complex things. And this whole article is an interesting article. Just read it if you get a chance. It's just Google "Is music the key to success?" And it talks about a bunch of people who are successful. Who this person was a piano player as a kid, and this person did this or played certain instruments. And it's a really interesting correlation that music tends to people who learn to play music have a better shot, I guess, at being successful in life. So it doesn't surprise me at all.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Use a
Super
different
yeah,
cool.
it's
part
like
of your
learning a
brain.
language. It's healthy for the brain. It has to make a lot of connections. to
Yeah,
put things like
absolutely.
that together.
Yep. It always makes me sad when I hear about schools who are going to cut their funding and the art, and
Yeah.
arts and
Yeah.
extracurricular quote unquote activities go first. I mean, I think that art is probably one of the most important things we can be teaching kids because it teaches them to, think freely and to, solve problems. I think.
Yeah, just not
Huge.
like cookie cutter.
Yeah.
It's how it kind of frames our culture and our values and all sorts of things over time. I think in Europe and places like that, they really hold that in higher regard, and I think it shows. They tend to be more well-rounded, I think, in their worldviews because of it.
Yeah.
They're also integrating meditation into their schools too, which is amazing.
Yeah, that's very cool. I read an article recently about that, how they're starting to have less problems, less violence and stuff. So, moving on to the next one. I've always been very curious about why. Do you know? Okay, so Cody, do you know what a major chord and a minor chord are? Basically,
Familiar.
I could play you one right now, but I don't have the setup going. Minor chord music that is in minor keys tend to invoke more of a sad feeling in us, and major keys are or more of a happy vibe.
Yeah.
And I was always curious as what is the psychology behind that? Why do
Right.
minor chords like tend to make us feel sad and major chords make us feel happy? And so I read this article, and it was has a very interesting explanation, which may or may not be the case, but it says that a lot of it is because of cultural conditioning. So in Western music, we tend to associate, those feelings because it's what we've grown up, it's what we're used to. It's what we're used to hearing. They did an experiment with this tribe playing major chords and minor chords to a tribe that didn't have any exposure to Western music at all, to see if it was innately in human beings or if
Right.
it was a culture conditioning. And the tribe responded that didn't respond the same way in terms of happy or sad to the way that we do in
They're just
the Western world.
experiencing it.
One thing that they did point out, though, was that when the tribes did hear some music that were minor keys, it had more to do with the tone of the person's voice singing it that they felt maybe happy or sad. So major and minor is not a universal human. It's a Western. It's Western cultural conditioning.
Interesting.
From
Yeah.
what this tends to how they explain it, which is kind of
For me,
cool.
most of the music I've ever been into has probably been very minor dominated, and I've never really personally associated it with whether it's like making me sad or happy. Almost everything I write actually is probably in a minor key when I
Right.
do music, and I write songs that are for me happy. So
Yeah, but think about this for a second. If you're watching a movie and like someone gets their throat slit, you don't hear this happy ta-da. That's usually like this really like
wouldn't that be awesome if
diminished
you did?
minor.
wouldn't it be awesome if you did?
We should create that movie.
we should take a bunch of clips from like movies with sad moments or horror moments
Change all
and
the
like
keys.
change all the
We
change
just,
all
like,
the keys and just
special
put in
effects.
happy music to it. And see.
But see, there
That'd
you're
be
saying
weird.
it. Put in happy music, but would it be happy music if you presented it in a
We'll
context where you were
recondition.
trying to make it work, but you were using major keys, right?
Right.
Like to break that cycle. Like, could you find major keys to make the moment still say what it's trying to say?
It might
That
just
would be
make
the
them
trick,
feel
right?
very uncomfortable.
There are some really clever music supervisors who I've seen, like certain movies you'll watch, and you see this more in modern movies where they take a song. Like for example, the other day I saw what's that song by Miles Davis? And I think to myself,
What a wonderful
what a
world.
wonderful right.
Yeah.
That was the intro to this unacknowledged UFO movie, and we're watching like UFO or not UFO, but like nuclear blasts and stuff. It's like that contrast of a happy song with negative images is definitely you get a weird
it's a
feeling
weird
from
discomfort.
that because you're hearing a happy beautiful song watching negative images. It's a very weird
It's
contrast
spooky.
of feel. Yeah, it's spooky. It's like
Yeah.
it's because it's
Gives you
supposed to be happy.
goosebumps.
It's the same thing they do in horror movies when you hear children singing. It's supposed to be this innocent,
Like angelic.
angelic,
But
innocent thing, but it's
it
like
wasn't-
creepy.
Sorry. Yeah, I just had to say it wasn't Miles Davis. It was Louis Armstrong.
Okay, Louis Armstrong. Sorry about that. But you know what I'm saying? It's really interesting how. So basically, this boils down to cultural conditioning. So
Yeah,
and
I believe
always,
it.
I always wondered
I
that.
believe it. I think one other thing to think about too is that like our 12-tone scale isn't universal. Like if you think about Indian music from like India, there's all sorts of weird microtonal stuff going on, and I think that brings out all sorts of strange emotions when we hear it.
Sure.
The cultural references to them or the way it feels to them is probably different than it feels to us. because we're
Right.
used-
Absolutely. Well, the last segment here is the reverse song game. So I got
Yay.
5 new ones for you guys.
Hopefully easier
Hope I
than
don't
last week.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. And
I've been sucking at this last.
I know.
all right. Well, let's try. Here's so hope I remember what these are. Let's see. All right. Song number 1. Here we go.
Oh fuck, I know this.
Oh fuck!
This is
I
in
totally
so
know
many
this song.
commercials,
Yep.
like an Apple commercial.
Anyone?
What is the name of?
I totally know this song.
Is it Goldfrapp?
Yes. Yep, you got it.
Goldfrapp. I I can't think of. I know it's Goldfrapp. I can't
that's
think of the
okay.
name of the song.
It's Ooh La La.
Ooh La La.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a very good. Very good.
Ooh La La La.
I love
la.
Goldfrapp. Love Goldfrapp.
I totally know that song. Couldn't think
Yeah.
of the name of it.
It's been licensed
It's in-
on so many TV shows
yeah,
and movies
everywhere.
and stuff. Yeah. All right, song number 2. This has no vocals, so
It's his laser
Profi, I
tag theme
expect you to at
song.
least.
I know the song. I'm trying to think of what the name is.
It's late 90s, early 2000s, big breakbeat band.
The Prodigy?
You're close.
It's not Prodigy.
You're close, but that's you're in the right realm.
Yeah.
Anyone? Connor?
I know the song.
What do you guys think?
Yeah, you.
Bad with names of things sometimes. Like I know it from sound, but it's
Crystal
is-
Method. Get busy, child.
Crystal Method.
It's cool. All right, song.
annoying. I should have gotten that one.
I know. Song. I don't expect you to get. I'm trying to
Basic.
I'm
No, I
trying
like
to vary
it.
it up. All
I
right,
like it.
Song number 3.
Radiohead.
No.
Coldplay. Me-
You too.
U2.
Connor. Connor. What
It's
song?
U2. Streets Have No Name.
Huh? No, but you're close. It's the
Uh,
Where the Streets Have No Name.
That's what I just said.
Okay, cool. Well, Connor said you too. You got Streets Were In. So you're both correct.
Yeah, you're both right. Claps for you guys.
All right, song number 4. This is super modern.
Fuck. I can't listen to it. Now I've got you in my space. I can't get over you. My embrace. I'm catching.
You
on
got it.
you.
Well, what's the band and the song?
Is it? Fuck. I know it. Is it Odessa?
Nope.
Who is it?
You want me to tell you? You want?
Yes, I want you to tell
It's
me. but
Disclosure.
I don't know.
Fuck.
Disclosure.
I had no idea. Still don't.
All right, I'm
Okay.
getting the beach ball of death here. Give me 1 second while my computer catches up. Ugh. Well, it was going good for you for a second.
That's
Come on,
okay.
is it gonna let me do this?
Why'd you do that? Confused
The
us.
last one better be phenomenal.
No kidding.
With the suspense.
The build-up is
I know,
amazing.
right?
Let's see. Hold on. Looks like Finder crashed. Sorry, audience, for this hiccup here. Let's hope this doesn't kill the whole show. You know what?
Killing the
We're recording the show on the main computer, so we're gonna have to forfeit this last song because if I reboot Finder, it might screw up our recording. So we're
But
just gonna.
you know what? Let's change this. Hold on.
You
Let's
sing
take
it
this to another.
backwards.
Why don't you sing it backwards?
'Cause
Yeah.
I don't remember what the 5th song was.
Shit.
Because I actually
That would have been great.
It's in the folder. I did a screenshot of all of them, and it's in the folder that I can't get to right now, so I don't remember what it is.
Shit.
Anyway, all
You're-
right.
Okay.
Moving on. Give you an extra one next week.
Yes. Okay.
Awesome.
And that is the end of my music section.
Yay.
So what do we got next?
What the
the
fact?
Oh,
And
what
so
the
I guess
fact?
we need to
It's-
intro this too, just in case new people.
Yeah.
are
So
listening.
what the fact?
Yeah,
this is
explain
the
what the
section.
fact.
This is my little section where I ask true or false or multiple choice questions, hopefully of things that are a little bit tricky, covering a wide range of topics, where I try to get you guys and you try to answer. This time, I kind of did it in a theme a little bit with what our topic is today. So there are some things that have to do with strange events in the world, naturally based. So let's get going.
All right.
Let's get it.
What is the U.S. rainfall record for a tropical storm or hurricane? This is multiple choice.
Thank God.
51.66 inches, 40.06 50.2 inches or 10.5 inches?
I'm gonna say 40.
I'll go with rainfall, correct?
What is the U.S. rainfall record for a tropical storm or hurricane?
I'll go with 50.
You are correct.
Oh.
The 51.66 inches is actually a record that was recorded with Hurricane Harvey that happened a few weeks back
What?
near Cedar Bayou, Texas.
Wow.
And that was, as we'll cover later, one of the things that made that hurricane unique is it's the incredible rainfall that caused a lot of damage. So the next one is a true or false question. Can you tell the temperature, or I should say if it's true or false, you can tell the temperature by counting a cricket's chirps.
Huh. I'm gonna say yes. I want to say true because
You really are hoping for those crickets to be cool. I would like to believe that they can, but I'll oppose you just so one of us can be right.
okay.
Scott is correct.
Yay!
Wow.
I
Wait,
don't- I don't
okay,
think-
what is the?
That's a cool fact, though. That's
Why didn't more people not know about that? I've never heard.
I don't know.
That.
And I please forgive me. I usually try to research them a little bit so I can give you like an expanded background on some of these kinds of things in particular. But this time I was rushing a per and I couldn't.
So
get
we
to it.
don't have any background on this one. Okay.
Not on this one.
All right.
So just go home and look up why or
Yeah.
how many chirps
Yeah.
per
Now
degrees.
I will say I got this one from National Geographic, so I feel pretty certain that's true.
Okay.
So
Okay. Cool.
for
That's
what
awesome,
that's
actually.
the next one. What is the windiest place on Earth? The North Pole, Cape Farewell in Greenland, or Mount Everest?
Everest.
Oof. I was gonna say Chicago. That's not
The Windy City, right? I should have put that in there as one of the
Yeah,
options.
that's actually that was a
Yeah,
great.
you
that's a
fucked
great
up.
choice.
fail on my part.
All right, I'll go with the Greenland Cape.
Greenland, Cape,
Sure.
Cape Farewell.
Cape
okay.
Farewell.
Or- Okay, it is Cape Farewell.
Oh,
Nice.
cool.
Nice.
And that kind of took me by surprise a little bit when I saw that little factoid. I was trying to think of other stuff that would sound way windier, like the North Pole or Mount Everest. But
Or Chicago.
Or Chicago.
or Chicago, which was a big miss on my part. Because, the normal association with that city is the Windy City would have been a great part.
Right.
Right. Cool.
The next one. This is a true or false question. In July 2001, blood rain fell on Kerala, India.
Is this true? True or false?
Yeah.
True.
What is blood rain?
I've heard something about this.
It's rain that is red.
I think I've heard something about this. Watch it be false, and I'm like, yeah, I heard something about
I'll
this.
oppose you on this one again. Yeah, I don't know. I don't even know what blood
But
rain
I'm going to say
is.
true because I think I've heard something about that. That's my final answer. I think I've heard something about this. True.
Well, luckily, I actually have the background on this one, but
So
it is true.
It did.
And I'll give you the background. It's kind of interesting. The Kerala red rain phenomenon was a blood rain event that occurred from the 25th of July to the 23rd of September 2001, when heavy downpours of red-colored rain fell sporadically on the southern Indian state of Kerala, staining clothes pink. Following a light microscopy examination in 2001, it was initially thought that the rains were colored by fallout from a hypothetical meteor burst. But a study commissioned by the government of India concluded that the rains had been colored by airborne spores from a locally prolific terrestrial green algae.
Yeah, that's what I had heard.
It's kind of gross.
Kind of weird, huh?
They should have called it like the Pepto-Bismol rain.
Really, the Pepto-Bismol rain?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think blood rain is a little more dramatic.
Yeah.
But
Anyway.
it's our scare tactics that we're going for.
So the last one is my favorite. What is the airspeed velocity of an unladen swallow?
African or European?
Cody.
It says multiple choice.
I'll give you multiple choice. Yeah, roughly 11 meters per second, or 24 miles an hour. Roughly 12 yards per second, or 39.5 kilometers an hour. What do you mean, African or European swallow?
I'm going with C.
I'll go with that one too.
You're just following him because you know he's onto something.
Everyone's laughing.
Monty Python, the Holy Grail.
Yeah,
That's where that comes from.
It is a bit of a trick question, but it's a trick question in more ways than you think.
Right.
The absolutely correct answer for this question is, what do you mean, African or European swallow? And that is a Monty Python thing. Now, to the other two, though, were a little bit tricky because someone actually tried to scientifically break down for the European swallow what the airspeed velocity would
That's
be.
awesome.
And that was roughly 11 meters per second, or 24 miles an hour.
That's great.
The second answer is also technically correct because I just switched the meters to yards and the miles to kilometers. So all of them are technically
Everything
correct.
is right.
Oh, okay. Well,
But
that was a good one.
The best points, though, definitely go to the African or European. 'Cause That
Right.
means you understood the question.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I
That's
don't know if
classic.
age is part of this. I thought it
I
might
just
be,
haven't
but,
seen it.
but
I just
Cody,
haven't seen it.
missing
know.
Monty Python. This is kind of a lecture from an elder to a younger,
Yes,
but missing Monty
please.
Python is very criminal.
Yeah, you got to see Monty Python. It
Okay.
still holds
I'll
up.
get
It's
onto
pretty
it.
funny.
I'll take psychedelics, then I will watch Monty Python.
Huh.
That'd be fun, actually, doing mushrooms and watching old Monty Python. But the
I-
Holy Grail's
yeah.
classic. Also, The Life of Brian's pretty good as well.
Okay.
Meaning of life is not bad as well.
Right? Yeah, The Meaning of
Just
Life.
make me a list.
Okay.
Make me
Monty
a list.
Python is kind of what gave you more modern movies, though, like Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, right? Brazil, like all of these classics from Terry Gilliam. He was from Monty Python, and a lot of the weirdness.
Did Terry Gilliam do Fear and Loathing?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow! I did not know that. Did not know that. Wow, that's great. That's a cool factoid. All
Loved
right,
it.
what's next? We've got Craigslist.
Craigslist. Okay. So I guess I'll explain why I've been doing these Craigslist things. I've always had a weird affinity for Craigslist, and that's actually how I found you guys.
Right. It's true.
And so
Yes,
I
yeah.
think to keep it in the same realm, or just pay homage to it, I've continued doing these weird Craigslist ads that I've found, and I find the best and funniest ones and bring them to the show every week. And I have Scott read them. I
Okay.
don't know why, but I have.
So let's see. Where are your Craigslist ads?
They're down
Okay, so
there.
here we go. Draw my tattoo.
And
okay.
so the first one, I want you to scroll through the photos, just because it's just a fuckery of confusion of what this dude wants for his tattoos.
A fuckery of confusion.
It
That's
sure
great.
is.
Great
That's
description.
that's pretty good. A fuckery of confusion. Draw my tattoo idea for money. I'll come to you to exchange cash for the drawing. So let's go through these.
Well, the first one is a weird, Superman S, and then it's just at the bottom, can you make this Super S wider? And then go to the next one.
What the fuck is that? Can you make this slap?
Can you make this Super S wider horizontally and slap 3 of them on a smiling rectangular mouth with teeth kind of as if it were a grill like this? And this dude just drew.
It's just like chicken scratch. It just looks like chicken. I can maybe make some S's out. In
Imagine
it, but,
just if you close your eyes and just let me read this to you. Just follow along in your head, and then go to the next one.
Okay.
Next photo, so I can read it. But smiling more, and of course more proficient. Then slap that entire mouth design on a bandana type drawing like this, which kind of tilt your head with a smiley
Yeah.
face with the weird.
It looks like
S's.
panties.
It does look like panties. They probably are. I hate that word.
Panties.
Go to the next one.
All right.
I'm moving
Wait,
on.
wait,
just like the word
let's
moist.
Let's talk about panties.
It just
Why
is
do you
a
hate that word?
gross fucking word.
Well, moist
Panties
panties
is?
would be even worse.
Guys.
Moist panties.
Moist. You don't like moist?
Have you ever had anyone just whisper the word moist into your ear? Just
I've never thought that moist or panties were bad. In fact, if someone were to whisper them both in sequence,
I've seen
feeling
so
pretty
many
lucky.
people who freak out on the word moist. Like people are just grossed out by the word.
It
It's
is a
it's like a
gross-
phenomenon of people hating the word moist.
Moist. It's just gross. It just comes
I like
off
it.
weird, and it's so
It
breathy.
rolls off the tongue so nicely. It's just kind of
I'm
sexual.
kind of whispering it into Cody's ear because she's
Yeah,
gonna have
I have headphones on. It's like you guys are right in my ears. I'm gonna fucking destroy these headphones.
Awesome.
That's
I got a
pretty funny.
drink to that.
Yeah,
Cheers.
that was good. That was good.
Cheers.
All right, this next one's pretty funny.
Anyhow, so then instead of a circle face, you want it to be his own face
It looks like
on his
Eminem.
hand. So like when you put that drawing up on here,
right.
it will be like this, and there's an example photo up there, and it creates a weird illusion that that mouth with the weird S's on the
Right.
grill will be on his face.
God, yeah.
Um,
That's kind of a cool idea, like that. At least that guy's photo right there. I
Yeah,
mean,
that
I wouldn't
guy
do
is
it,
a-
but I,
Yeah, and then the last one, but instead of going like this on your face, it's a little bit to the side.
right. Well,
So, and he'll only pay you $10 to $15 to decode that fucking thing.
well, I didn't get that part. I'm willing to pay $10 to $15 for the drawing.
He'll come to you for the
What?
exchange.
What self-respecting artist would want
Nobody.
I have no
Nobody.
fucking idea. So
That's
I'm
just
making
like
a quick buck.
that. This always annoys me. Like being an artist, like people just never want to pay for good art. They just don't want to pay for it. It
No.
makes
Totally
me so
agree.
angry.
It's like you might as well be a gardener, but a gardener would be making more money.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like
yeah, you can make more money at
the fuck is
McDonald's than
Yeah, anyhow, that was the first one, and that was just a whirlwind to go through.
I like this one. This one was fun.
Yeah, that one was nice.
Hold on, this is not.
Just press the back button, probably.
No, I can't get over. But I'm trying to.
See, Quirks sheet.
There we go. Okay, next one.
All right, so the next one, I looking for exotic dance. This one is sweet and simple, but I just love his fucking glasses, and I think he took it on either an iPad or like a really fat ass phone case.
I don't understand. This is done in my home in Jackson, New Jersey. Have to like toys and dancing. Send photos. No photos. No chat. Thanks.
Prayer signs.
Like toys and dancing.
I looking for exotic dance.
But look at the glasses.
Wow. I don't even understand like what he's looking for.
He looking.
Yeah.
I looking
Like-
for exotic.
Right.
I mean, he's talking about toys, though. I mean, that's like a that's more
I'm confused.
I don't
intense
know.
than
I'm
a
definitely
general
confused.
I
dance,
don't
right? Is he
know.
looking for a sex act, or is he looking for someone to dance
I
for?
looking
I-
for exotic. That's it. I looking for exotic.
All right,
The next one.
Grammar
so,
is important, kids out there.
grammar is very important.
Don't expect good grammar on Craigslist. Come on.
Right.
We know this by now.
So the next one is I've decided to look at like the Houston just because they just went through the hurricane. I'm like, okay, what are these people's priorities? What are they looking for
Right.
after the hurricane? And this guy is looking for someone to stand in line for him to get the iPhone 8 at an Apple store.
Hey, Houston. I need people to stand in line for the new iPhone 8 release. I will pay you $75 for your time. If
Wow.
you're interested, please respond to this email with your closest Apple Store location. Wow.
Yeah.
Well,
Or
maybe
just
not
a couple
all.
days away.
Maybe not all of Houston is underwater. I mean, that's
Right.
So
And then after I went to Fort Myers, and I wonder if he emailed me back. I emailed this guy asking for more information about this post just because I was interested in it. But Fort Myers got hit pretty bad by the hurricane, yeah?
I don't know. I don't know.
Myers?
Fort Myers.
So? I'm not 100% sure about
Is it
Fort
in the
Myers
vicinity?
specifically.
He didn't respond to my email yet.
Well, let's read this. Help wanted. Family woman needed $400. I assume that's what that is. Help wanted. I'm looking for an honest, open-minded, white, married family woman or single mom who is in her 30s or 40s who is and must be toilet swirly aware. Huh? To fill a 2-hour gig that pays $400. I need a swirly giver only. Email Flush for the complete gig description and requirements, and be sure to put swirly in the heading, and I will get back to you ASAP. Serious applicants only. Is this a fetish? Is this some sort of fetish?
I
I'm
think he
guessing?
wants a swirly, but he probably isn't responding to my email because he's outside just sticking his head out the window, getting a swirly from Mother Nature.
Is this in Houston also?
No, this is in Fort Myers,
Oh, right. Okay.
where they're getting hit right now.
Weird, man.
Kink came true.
Right, they are.
Weird.
Okay, so the next two are pretty fucking good, and Scott actually help me find these. And then on the best of.
All right. So need 32 midgets, 3 hours acting experience helpful. My friends and I are huge Harry Potter fans, super nerds. We're entranced by the idea of wizard's chess and would like to hold a wizard's chess tournament using real little people dressed as chess pieces. Don't worry. We will provide the costumes. Wow. You will be required to stand on the chessboard and move around as ordered by the wizard directing your side. When capturing another piece, we require some act of violence, ideally thematic with your piece, but without injuring the opposite player too severely. We'll need them for the next game after all. Breaks between games shall not exceed 3 minutes. Wow. That's all you get is 3 minutes after standing up for however long. There's no direct pay. Instead, we anticipate that much like Wizard's chess pieces need encouragement in the novels, our contestants will tie up their pieces to encourage active play. Extra money to whoever snags the best costumes, queen, rook, bishop, and so on. And of course, a bounty to the winning side. A bounty in the form of butter, beer, and pumpkin pastries. No fire whiskey. Wow. This is not a joke. We love all things Potter, and we're doing this for real, with or without you, except we cannot do it without at least 32 of you, so please respond.
It's a lot of people to get together. We have a hard time getting together
for hardly
for
any
people.
pay. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, 32 people.
32 little people?
Yeah, they need 32 little people.
And the compensation is sickles, nuts, and the occasional galleon direct from our vault at Gringotts, which is Harry Potter Bank, just in money, if you didn't know.
I did not know that. Are you a super nerd too?
I really like Harry Potter.
Okay, that's okay. I like Harry Potter too. I'm not making fun of it.
Harry Potter is my favorite.
Wow.
All right, well, let's move on to the
last and
one.
final one. So this one is a boat for sale in Houston.
2,000 fast load aluminum trailer, 25 to 28 foot boat, $3,000. Burnt boat, so I am parting out. No shit. Selling trailer with new tires, all aluminum with brakes. I have clear Texas title in hand. The trailer took no damage in the fire. The fire department why do people not use fucking punctuation? Is it just beyond comprehension for people to put in a period or a comma once in a while?
He had to put the ad up fast. His boat was on fire.
The trailer took no damage in the fire. The fire department put the fire out. Call me with any questions.
I like how the name of the boat is Kiddin' Around.
Hold on. Look at this. Look at this.
It's on fucking fire.
It's like he took the picture while it was on fire.
That's actually
not
really
after
awesome,
it was on fire.
Or like, before.
Did he set it on fire? I mean, you have to wonder. Was that just like serendipitous timing? Like that he just happened to be there while his boat was on fire and he happened to have a camera?
Ed, why was he taking a picture and not putting the fire out?
Because the fire department was putting the fire out. He was writing the ad.
It doesn't look like it.
Do you see fire department anywhere in this picture?
No.
I don't.
No.
I don't either.
That's fucking weird. People, Craig, you know what? I'm going to say this directly to all you Craigslist people. You're fucking weird.
I love you. Please continue doing what you're doing. Don't change. Stay the same.
Yeah. It is.
Never change.
It is entertaining. I have to give it that.
It's just comedy gold.
I love it.
It's such a way to peer into the psyche of your average American.
Is it the average American?
I don't know if it's
though?
average.
I don't know. I mean, actually, when you think average American, yes, I would agree. Maybe the average American, yeah. So, right. I'm not going to say that.
Mediocre at best.
The average mediocre American.
That's my Craigslist segment.
All right.
All right. So, I guess we're at news. So we moved the news around a little bit this time because I thought it'd be hard to do the news without talking about all the crazy shit going on right now. That includes an 8.1 earthquake, a huge chunk of
that
the
was
West
Mexico
on fire.
City, right? Was that Mexico? Okay.
It's in Mexico. We'll get into it, but a huge chunk of the Pacific Northwest and West on fire. A huge slew of hurricanes, about 4 of them,
one after another.
Yeah. So, and some at the same time, actually. So, I figured we'd do it now and kind of just dig through this because a lot of crazy stuff going on.
A lot of shit.
Most people would probably say this is the end of the world.
And to that point, actually, I got a couple Bible verses that I think
got some too.
Awesome. So we'll take turns. Do you want to go first, or do you want me to go first? I got 2 Bible verses.
You lead mass today, baby.
Oh,
you're in charge.
I did. The first, these are both from Luke, for what it's worth, and I guess they have to do with people claim it has to do with the prophecies around the second coming of Christ, which is actually a disputed concept in Christianity, but is a very popular one in America.
Right.
The first is there will be signs in the sun and moon and stars. Think eclipse.
Right.
And on the earth, dismay among the nations. Think politics. Bewildered by the roaring of the sea and the surging of the waves. Think hurricane.
Right.
Another one, which is actually a couple verses before it, but I realigned them for dramatic effect. There will be great earthquakes, famines, and pestilences in various places, and fearful events and great signs from heaven. So some people, especially in this country, because there's a pretty large fundamentalist thing going on here, tend to like to relate natural disasters, our theme today, to reactions from God or things from God that are part of fulfilling prophecy about the end times. I don't know what you have, Cody, as far as Bible verses.
Mine had to do with that, where people were going into the numerology of it. So this one is just a photo, and it was saying the solar eclipse was on the 21st. Hurricane Harvey showed up on the 25th and started flooding the 26th. Now go look up Luke 21:25-26. And then it was the quote about there will be signs in the sun, moon, and stars. On the earth, nations will be in anguish and perplexity at the roaring and tossing of the sea. And then 26 is people will faint from terror, apprehensive of what is coming on the world, for the heavenly bodies will be shaken. Basically alluding to the end of the world.
You started with the same one I started
Yeah.
with, which seems really relevant right now.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah, it's interesting. People get really freaked out by this stuff.
They're looking for answers.
They are.
And then these answers are just making them more frazzled.
Well, you know something I just noticed you're talking about the numerology of it. People will love to associate things with just any number. Like, well, if you add 2 and 12,
Right.
that's 14 in the 14th verse of this. You know what I mean? They try to find any combination or any series of numbers that suits
right.
their point. You know what I mean?
It's a confirmation bias thing.
And then if you divide that by the number of
thing,
verses in the
bias.
Bible that just happens to be 666, you know what I mean? Like it's always something like
Yeah.
that, you know?
Well, there's a lot of information in this world, so it's very easy to selectively choose pieces of that information to tell a story.
Right.
You have an almost endless array of numbers and events and prophecies.
Yeah, and if you plug in
things.
enough stuff, eventually it's going to suit you. I mean, how many things do you have to go through that doesn't line up with your theory?
You'll find it.
And eventually you're going to find something that works for you. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. So to get going, I'm going to start with a news item. It has to do, and you can put it up if you want on the screen. I don't know if there's not a pictures for this one. There'll be a couple that relate to it that will be more critical. But basically the article is, and I think there's lots of these, so it's kind of a token, but I like the headline. Massive sunspots and solar flares. The sun has gone wrong and scientists don't know why. Kind of obscured by all of the crazy weather events, hurricanes, and all that kind of stuff, has been a really unusual thing. For background, the sun goes through 11-year cycles, and these cycles have to do with its activity. It'll kind of go through a quiet time, and then it'll go through a more aggressive and an active time, where you see sunspots, you see a lot of solar storms, coronal mass ejections, where it shoots out lots of plasma and magnetic field stuff happens, and it gets really active. That kind of stuff can have a big impact on us here when it hits the area of the Earth. It kind of bounces off our atmosphere and magnetic sphere. I don't know if that's the right term for it, but it can cause disruptions in our communications and satellites. If it's really bad, it can knock out entire power grids and cause catastrophes. It's a pretty big deal because the sun shoots out some pretty potent stuff. So anyway, what's going on right now that's bizarre is that we're at the low end of what's supposed to be a very still and quiet part of that cycle. And so we're not supposed to be seeing a lot of that stuff. But and I'll start to quote here a little bit from the article. That seems to have changed or from the norm, because what we've seen on September 4th, the sun started sputtering, and a moderately large flare erupted and produced a coronal mass ejection aimed at Earth.
Directly?
Then it continued to flare on September 5th, and a solar energetic particle event, they're calling it, from the previous day's activities arrived at the Earth, where it likely affected radio communications as well as the health of satellite systems. On September 6th, the sun produced two massive, what they call X-class flares. This is a category of the strongest of all solar flares. NASA announced one was the most powerful since 2008. It produced another coronal mass ejection.
Was that headed towards us too?
I believe so. So over the next day, the same sunspots continued to spit out more solar flares. It took about an hour for the solar energetic particles they emitted to arrive at Earth. They're very fast moving. And again, they can affect communication systems, especially in the polar regions. They increase the radiation in space. They affect satellite systems. They can affect the health of astronauts that are in space. Then I guess on the early hours of September 7th, the first coronal mass ejection that erupted from the sun 3 days earlier arrived at Earth. Now, to differentiate, there's certain particles that can get here very quickly. But the impact of a coronal mass ejection, I guess, is different, and it takes a little bit longer. Because of the way its magnetic field aligned with Earth's, it generated a small geomagnetic storm. So it kind of goes on and on. It talks about, various things related to this. But it was bad enough that in some high latitude regions, it blacked out radio communications at certain frequencies. It's messed with ham radios, which are used in emergency disaster relief management, which right now is not particularly a good time for. It did, a bunch of different things that were negative in the same region as was being pummeled by Hurricane Irma, actually. So there's been a loss of some GPS stuff as a result. I mean, it's kind of an endless thing. I don't want to go through the whole article, but this is really, really unusual.
Yeah.
And they don't know why it's happening. One benefit of this, though, is that you get really, really amazing auroras on Earth. And if we could pull up something from our document, at the bottom, I have a little area with miscellaneous stuff. There, I have two links. One is of the auroras that they actually saw in Scotland, in Scotland, and the other from Alaska. And it might be worth pulling those up, just kind of scrolling through the pictures really quick. But this is kind of where that comes from.
It's pretty.
Wow.
I've never seen one of those in person
I
before.
haven't
I've
either,
always
but I
wanted
want
to.
I have once seen it. There was an event that was so intense once that you could see it in the Mojave in Southern California, which
I
is
love that it's
extremely rare.
green. It's just green. You just don't see that in the sky very often, or really ever.
The time that I saw it in the Mojave, I was playing a show, a desert party, and I was playing a show between these two rock formations that had projections on them, and the auroras that somehow had made it all the way down to Southern California were in the sky behind me. I don't know if maybe the distance removed the color span. They were not like what you're seeing in those pictures, but it was kind of a reddish, weird, trippy lighting that was going on. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it looks beautiful.
I know, awesome.
So luckily for us, generally those things don't impact us on a personal level on the planet. Our magnetic, the magnetism of the Earth basically creates a sort of protective barrier around us. And if you remember from a show or two ago, news item was that some of the stuff we're doing is actually enhancing that barrier.
Right.
So from a health perspective, I don't think it causes any problems, but it really causes problems with electrical stuff. And
right.
Just about to
one
ask
thing-
about that.
I was having some
Yeah.
janky internet problems the last couple days. I don't know if it has anything to do with
Me too.
sun
Could be.
activity, but
One thing that's actually scary, and I'll kind of close with this, the one thing that this could be really bad for is if it were to hit with the right strength in the right place at the right time, it could knock out our electrical grids. And I'm talking blow up transformers. And
Right.
the problem here is that, especially in the United States, compared to the rest of the modern world, our electrical grid is extremely old and has not been updated in a long time.
Yeah.
If that happens, and it's happened before on minor levels, it can wipe out electricity for whole regions that would take potentially months to fix, maybe
Right.
longer.
Well, and also when you think about the timing, if that had been stronger with all these other natural disasters that are happening right now, can you imagine having radio out, electric out, on top of having
Like, we can't even help these
like you
people.
can't even help people because like you can't communicate. There's no electricity. I mean, I'm talking about hurricane, like all earthquakes and hurricanes. You know, on top of a solar flare that knocks it out, that would put us in a pretty
Oh,
bad
yeah.
position.
This one actually did do that. It did impact some surfaces in the area of the Hurricane Irma
Wow.
when it was over the Caribbean.
Wow.
So it's very real, and it's pretty intense. But we don't think about it very much because, especially where we live, we don't tend to see auroras so much, and it's just not something you think about. But that's happening on top of all these other things. So moving forward, I think I'm going to go a little bit out of order from how I have it listed in the spreadsheet, just because I think we should close on hurricanes, which right now will probably be the lengthiest part of our discussion.
Yeah.
Actually, here I have, okay. The next one, if hurricanes aren't enough, one of which is actually on the east coast of Mexico right now. Mexico suffered an 8.1 earthquake. This was just a couple days ago. The biggest earthquake to hit Mexico in over a century, killed
Might wanna mute
58,
it.
and moved the fault there by 32 feet. I don't know if the killed number is still accurate. It may have gone up. I hope it didn't. But there was a massive earthquake that hit on September 7th.
Wow.
It's the biggest
Wow.
earthquake in the region in almost a century. And the 8.1 quake was so large, it moved the fault by up to 32 feet as the Cocos and North American tectonic plate collided.
Wow.
All these people
the-
filming are not in safe places where you should be
Yeah,
for an earthquake.
we blew the video up here full to full screen, and it's crazy seeing some of this.
Yeah, if you want, while we're talking about this as well, in my notes section at the bottom, I have a link to 21 images, it's called, from the earthquake. And it kind of, if you scroll through those, will give you an idea of the range of problems that came as a result.
Wow.
Cool.
But earthquakes, I mean, we know this all too well, I guess, living in California.
Yeah, I lived in Southern
You
California.
did, and I grew up with them, having always lived here. They're brutal.
Yeah.
And an 8.1 is extremely, extremely potent.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
The scale, the way it works, is exponential. So like a 7.1 to an 8.1 is not a small jump. It is a massive.
So it's like logarithmically, basically, how.
Yeah, it's an exponential curve.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. So, I don't know what much to say about it other than looking at the pictures and just kind of
Is that thing
internalizing.
rocking back and forth?
Wow.
We're playing wow, look at that. You could see it like rocking back and forth.
There's
that's
just
crazy.
crushed buildings, crushed cars, just things completely just destroyed.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when the Northridge earthquake happened in Southern California. I woke up kind of shaking in my bed, and I was down in Dana Point at the time, which was pretty far from the epicenter. I talked to a buddy afterwards, and he said he woke up falling because the bed had jolted so hard upwards and then sunk that like he was in midair.
Wow.
So he woke up.
Wow.
He was
Wow.
up in Burbank, which was much
That's
closer to
so
the epicenter
crazy.
than I was. I drove accidentally. Well, I wasn't driving accidentally, but I drove accidentally through some of the wreckage after that earthquake because I was trying to get up to Ventura, and I didn't realize where some of the bridge collapses were, and there were tons of them along the 10 freeway and then up over the pass that heads up towards like Magic Mountain and all that kind of stuff. Santa Clarita, I guess. I got stuck in this massive traffic jam and turned a corner and saw a bunch of the bridges that had been in the news that were completely collapsed. It looked like a giant bomb had grown off.
I've been in 2 earthquakes. When I was a kid, when I lived in San Francisco, I was in one then. I remember being in elementary school, and we used to have drills where you have to get under your desk and stuff. And so I remember that. And then I was in actually not a very big one, but when I was living in New Mexico when I was a kid, there was one there. And they happen all kinds of places. They just don't happen as often or as strong in certain places as they do in others that have fault lines,
Yeah. I couldn't count how many I've been in. When I was a kid, they were happening all the time. I would get real excited, and I'd run downstairs, and I'd lay on the floor and let it shake my body around while I watched pictures swaying on the walls and stuff.
Yeah, not me.
Because I grew up in Southern California, and I think I've kind of gone through almost all of the big earthquakes down here. I just wasn't always very close to where they were the most damaging.
Right.
But yeah, it's crazy, and I feel for the people down in Mexico. I don't think they have nearly the kinds of earthquake regulations on their buildings that we do here, and so when things hit, they really, really hit hard.
Yeah.
But I live in San Francisco.
Well, Portland,
happen at any
the
time.
Pacific Northwest is on a major. It's not even a fault line, isn't it? They call it the
It's
ring.
off the coast,
right? And
well,
so
if you're
go
talking
ahead,
about,
go ahead.
I'm sorry. Well, I'm sorry, I kind of cut you off.
No. I don't really know. I don't understand. I can't explain scientifically like why it is what it is, but I do from what I understand, there's a major fault line or where 2 plates you can explain it better, but it runs from Portland all the way up to Seattle. If this were to go, it would level the entire.
What it is, there's 2 different types of earthquake generators, right? And it's when the plates slide against each other, north and south. And then there's types where one plate is actually sinking underneath the other, right? And I think it's the Pacific plate, or I don't know if it's a different word for it, or if it's a different plate up there, but the plate from the Pacific Ocean that's off the coast of like Seattle, Oregon, going north, is going under what I guess is the North American plate. I might be using the wrong names, but that's locally what's happening, right?
Right.
And when it goes under like that, it's what's creating all the volcanism from Northern California all the way up into those regions, right? So you've got that whole line of volcanoes and stuff that are a result of the process of that happening. Off the coast of Washington, I think primarily, there is a zone that is extremely problematic. And very much like, I believe, the one that generated that massive earthquake in Indonesia a few years back that swamped all the beaches from Africa all the way through Southeast Asia with tsunamis, right?
Right.
And one of the big things that can happen up where you are is if that thing blows, that thing can blow with a massive amount of force. It can definitely blow, from what I understand, with an 8.1 level type earthquake like in Mexico, which is massive, maybe even higher. If that thing blows, or actually I should say when it blows, that could send major tsunamis along with a lot of damage in some of those regions, and it would wipe out tons of places. It could be a huge problem all over the coast there. It could send water up the river, I guess, towards Portland. It could do a lot of things. I don't know if Portland in particular is at risk, but it would be a huge catastrophe in the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like ever since I've moved here, I've seen people walk around during the summers with flyers saying, like, here we're gonna have like an emergency like neighborhood meeting talking about what we're gonna do in preparation for when this earthquake does happen, or everything. Everyone's just being really prepared, which is good. Just frightening.
Yeah, I've
when
got
you move
6
here.
months worth of emergency food. Like I've been thinking about, I try not to be the doomsday guy, but I think having a stash of emergency food for, it's just Naomi and I, but it sounds like a good idea. I don't know. Lately, it sounds like a better idea. So.
You know what you should do probably, and this is the thing that I've been a little bit slow on because I have some preparedness stuff as well, is you need to store a lot of water.
Yeah.
Right.
Because that's the one thing you can't get anymore. When the electricity goes down and the plants that clean things go down, like the water supply becomes contaminated if it's moving at all. that's a huge problem because you're going to need water much faster than you're going to need
Right.
food.
Well, we live on the river essentially, and we have this filter that like filters out all like 99% of the bacteria, and like so we're good on water.
Yeah, but they clog. Like you can't use them indefinitely.
Right.
So anyway,
When we go into Harvey or Irma, my mom, she's been sending me photos. She's been preparing. They ended up staying. They just like hunkered down.
Is your mom in Florida?
They're in Florida. Yeah.
Oh, I
Where?
didn't know that.
They're in Lakeland. So I
Where's
think
that?
the eye of it's passing right over them. It's probably an hour south of Orlando.
So why would they stay?
I have no idea.
Maybe some
have
people
no
just don't have
idea.
anywhere to go. I think.
No, they have
Well,
plenty of. I mean, that is
yeah.
true, but they have places to go. They just decided that just in case anything happened, like they wanted to be there and.
You mean like
Right.
death?
Yeah,
Like
basically,
death
in
and
case
dying
they
in a
die.
hurricane.
I've already given them a lot of shit about it, so I don't know. Who knows?
So let's segue then. I think.
I think we should talk
into
about the fires
hurricane.
before that.
Yeah.
But I do want to mention,
All
like,
right.
I have photos that I want to send about, like, all the water aisles, or I want to show all of the water aisles and all the grocery stores and everything, and just talk about that. But we should talk about the fires first, and I have a really fucking
All right.
cool picture.
It's tempting
for
to get
that.
to the earthquakes, but I've got some pictures as well. If you
Hurricanes,
bring
yeah.
up what my link. Actually, you don't even have to bring up my link, the main one. If you go to the bottom again into my miscellaneous stuff, I have some Western fires there, images there, links there, and go to the one that's NASA Maps. That's the one that I would say is probably the best, and it really is the perfect backdrop to this issue.
Which one is it? It's at the bottom.
NASA Maps, the very bottom one.
Oh, I see.
There are a
Let
huge
me refresh this page again.
amount of fires going on in the west and northwest right now. I know they've been going on for a long time, at least for a few months, because when I was down in LA to do my show, our band member and mix production master Ken Hiwatt Marshall flew back to Canada, where he lives just north of Vancouver, and had to hunker down somewhere because the whole region around his house was on fire.
It's crazy.
So it's been going on in that part of Canada outside of Vancouver for a while,
All
and
over
it seems
that
to have
map,
worked its
wow.
way.
Well, it's
down
a pretty dry
into-
summer. I mean, it's not surprising. Here in Oregon, for any of you who are listening who don't know about this, and one of the major ones that are started around our area, and actually, just to say, like we felt the effects of it here in Portland. The air quality was at dangerous levels
So
for days.
horrible, dude.
It was
you
bad.
get like those gas masks, and
Yeah.
you'd see people driving around in their cars with these gas masks, like the full ones
Did
with
you
the
see
vents.
that? Really?
Oh yeah, driving.
Wow, I didn't see that. I
Driving
didn't go out of
around.
the house much, so I wasn't
Yeah.
outside. But
was
some
horrible.
kid like decided to throw a smoke bomb apparently into the gorge, like just fucking around, and set the whole fucking thing on fire. I mean, he's never gonna live that down.
I mean, he's going to court for it. And
Really?
everything.
Oh,
Yeah.
I almost feel bad for him because I know as a kid I've done some really stupid shit before. So like it sucks that he will be living with this the rest of his life
His
because he made a
parents are
stupid decision.
You don't realize the big picture when you make decisions.
Oh
like
no,
that.
and
No.
like the gorge, honestly, it looked like Mount fucking Doom. It was so scary just seeing photos of it, and they had to evacuate so many different towns.
Actually,
and there were a bunch of
Put up that picture. I think
Which-
you had.
Which
The
is
one
it,
with the
Cody?
golf.
golfing picture.
Oh, let me go to
This
my
is
email.
one of the wildest pictures I've seen yet.
So Cody sent me these in my
You can make
email
it
here.
full screen, probably.
No, that's just download. That's
Okay. So
As
this
long as
is
it's visible.
these are golfers. This is kind of funny, but these are golfers playing in front of the fucking gorge on fire. Like all of those wildfires are going on.
that's
and
insane.
I think on the other side of the river, they're just finishing golfing. But anyways, what I was saying was a lot of hikers ended up having to like sleep overnight, and they had to like helicopter in food and water for all of them, and like these people didn't know where to go because they were stuck on this creek trail, the Eagle Creek Trail,
Wow.
hiking, and then these fires started, so they're just stuck
Yeah.
there.
It's pretty crazy, and I guess Montana's actually been hit amongst the hardest. in this whole thing as well. They have a fire called the Rice Ridge Fire, and I guess at the point of the news article that I have, which is a couple days old, it had burned over 108,000 acres and was only 2% contained.
Yeah, the fires here are only like 7 or 8% contained as well. Like they're struggling with this, and it's just, and a lot of Oregonians are grieving. Because there are so many nature people here. These places that they've been able to visit and just love and adore for so many years. I mean, it's just gone up in smoke, and a lot of people are really we're having an emotionally like a very hard time with it's like grieving over a loved one, like a dead, someone who died.
It's kind of a weird thing, and there's a lot of different views on this kind of an issue, which is surprising maybe, but like some people would argue, and this I was just thinking about this because of what you just said, that because we've been so anti certain types of forestry practices, which do include certain amounts of cutting and maintenance, because people have been so, nature people have been so actively about leaving these natural places alone, we have allowed them to build up tons and tons of fuel that actually is what creates some of the catastrophes that we have now. Because we don't clear things out, we don't space things out, we don't maintain. I guess forests that are more maintained are less prone to this sort of thing. And so I've read at least that some people feel that the sort of anti-wooding forestry kind of vibe has ended up with us maybe not doing things that could have helped some of these situations. I don't know how true that is. I see the logic in it. There probably is logic in it in some circumstances for sure. It's hard to say. I know at this one, that the kid, he's getting all the press, but from what I've read so far, a lot of what we're seeing this season is from lightning strikes.
Wow.
Right.
That's what
this isn't the only fire in the Pacific Northwest. This is just one of them. And they're all over.
Yeah, they are all over.
It's crazy. I mean, every year.
Like 87, I think, or more. What do I have? I've read 76. I've read 87. I don't know. There's a lot of fires.
Right. And the ones that they put out, honestly, if wind picks up somewhere, like they could just start back up in a few weeks.
Right.
It's like we still have to be worried about them.
Yeah. In California, as you may know, in Los Angeles, there was a big fire near Burbank. And actually, an old friend of both Scott and I, Sean Parker, was taking pictures of it surrounding his house.
No shit.
Wow.
Yeah, he had to evacuate. And luckily, his house wasn't impacted, but the fire had completely surrounded him, and that was kind of edgy. So it was one of the biggest, if not the biggest, fire directly in Los Angeles ever.
I used to live in that area, too. I lived in Glendale, bordering on Burbank, and I know exactly where because it's on the mountains, essentially.
Yeah, it's right there on the mountain.
Yeah.
One thing that I'm guessing is going to be a problem. I mean, this fire season in California, this at least, and I'm guessing it's similar up there, really just started. It's usually the fall season before any rains have come, if rains come at all. And one thing that's happened now is, we've been in drought for a long time, and that drought's been massive and problematic, and it's its whole own other story. But one thing that we finally got this winter is some rain, right? We got a lot of rain, a lot of reservoirs filled up, didn't solve all the problems, but it knocked us out of the worst part of that drought. But a side effect of that is that all the hills and everywhere fully got just covered in brush and grass and all sorts of things that grew because of all the water that it got throughout the winter. Now, once the sun hits in California, much like I'm sure up there, everything turns brown because it's really, really hot.
Dry.
Yeah.
So we've got tons of fuel to potentially have a really, really bad fire season. So this is something that could impact a lot of people. So far, it hasn't been houses so much that have been burning, as far as I can tell, in these fires.
Yeah.
A lot of land has been burning. But if any of these fires, and Scott, you could speak to this, being, having been down in Southern California for a long time, a lot of huge parts of the LA basin are right up against hills covered in grass.
Yeah.
If there are fires in these areas,
you're in a bowl.
Yeah. I've stood on my mother's roof and seen major fires surrounding the region, and I'm talking these things were 20 to 50 miles away. like mountaintops to hills to from Laguna to the Ortega Mountains to like everything. I saw fire in every direction one year. It can get really scary. So
It's a lot of
hopefully
things, a lot of compounded things happening right now. It's weird.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's all happening at once. You know?
Yeah.
Solar flares, earthquakes, fires, and now hurricanes.
Yeah.
Hurricanes. There's the perfect segue. As I think anybody would know, following the news right now, is there has been a slew of hurricanes. It kind of started with Hurricane Harvey, which was from a handful of weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
For anybody who doesn't know, that's the huge hurricane that hit Texas. And kind of going back to our true or false question earlier, the thing about Harvey that was so bad is it carried an unbelievable amount of moisture, and it dropped so much rain that around Houston, everything overflowed and turned into basically lakes and rivers, caused tremendous damage. Now, the fact that a hurricane hit isn't what's unique, but what is kind of unique, it seems like to me, is how many of these things are coming so fast. The hurricane season just started. This is the beginning, right? We have Hurricane Harvey. We have right now Hurricane Irma hitting
We should put
Florida.
up a live cam right now.
Yeah, let's do that.
Let's
Let's
put up a webcam.
okay. Which one do you want me to put up?
Watch the 4 cameras. That shows
that's your-
Jacksonville,
combo.
Miami,
Okay.
Sunglow Pier, and Surfline, Pelican Beach.
Oh, wow, we've actually got some audio. That's
Miami's getting hammered now. I can already see since before we started the show the rise in the oceans.
The Miami camera is like black. Wow.
That's
crazy.
it's intense. I'm trying to see if I can get that Jupiter live stream up, but it's been mostly knocked off. I think it might have been destroyed. And from watching,
What the heck is that?
I think
Oh, it's kids crying.
it's probably
I wonder
from
what
like
that-
the inside of something. These live
Yeah.
cameras.
Let's see. Let's go check another live cam feed here. Let's see if we can find like Jupiter cam. Let's see what's happening there.
This is so crazy.
Jupiter cam's down. I can't see the live feed.
Okay.
I see some pictures up,
Yeah.
but they're a little bit older. It was already
I see
looking
the
pretty
video.
bad. Is the video
Oh,
playing?
it's this. That's what it's
It's
coming
in the
from.
back corner right down
Yeah.
there.
Okay. Got it. All right. Sorry, I had audio coming from another page that I had open.
Of the
Let's see.
camera.
Which other one? 3 hurricane image or vanishing beach or no.
Okay, so
4
let's pace ourselves on this.
Okay.
But here's that's basically what's going on, and that's Hurricane
Irma.
Irma, as you know, most have probably seen, started out in the Atlantic, turned into a Category 5, turned into one of the largest storms ever recorded. Just battled its way through the Caribbean.
Right.
I mean, just
Yeah, it left. It just
We're talking
leveled
like-
it. Leveled it.
80-90% damage kind of stuff, like just wiped some island countries out, hit the Virgin Islands, hit parts of Cuba, battered the Bahamas. I think it was mass destruction in some parts of the Bahamas. We don't have a lot of the statistics now as far as deaths and all that kind of morbid stuff, because this is all still kind of happening and just recovering. But it's been a huge problem, and the fear has been that this massive Category 5 hurricane, which I believe is like 3 plus times the width of the state of Florida, would go just wipe everything out. And right now, as of today, as of this morning, is when it's just hitting. Originally, it was focused right on Miami, which is where a chunk of my family live. And so a few days ago, once things got serious, I was talking to my cousin. He grabbed my aunt. They boarded up her house, and they took off. And they're in Georgia now, luckily. Massive amounts of people fleeing. The governor of the state basically said, if you stay, you could die.
Right.
Ugh.
So get the hell out. The Keys were totally evacuated.
Oh God,
but,
yeah.
they're probably being battered. I don't know. There was a live cam I had and a handful of live cams I'd looked at earlier, but most of them have gone out now and look like they're replaying old stuff. I've noticed as this hurricane progresses that a lot of live cams I was able to catch as it was moving through different places. Like there was one in St. Martin's, that island, where the famous shot of the beach where the giant airplanes land right over the people.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you've seen that before on the internet. That's St. Martin's, right? That cam was playing for a while as Irma was approaching and hitting, and it looked like Armageddon was happening.
God.
Right. Wow.
Just and then it eventually got knocked off its perch and went out. Like the hurricane wiped out the cam.
That's crazy.
So yeah, Irma right now is a huge freaking problem. It's currently it decided not to hit Miami, though it's so big that it's probably still
of all
terrorizing.
places it should have hit.
Well, I think that
I take that back. Miami's just a kind of a cesspool of scummy people, but not all of them. But there's a lot.
Well,
I've been to Miami a lot, so I know
this thing is huge. So it's probably terrorizing Miami. But I think the new thing that's a bit of a worry is it's going a little bit west, and it's going to hit Tampa Bay. And I just read a long article yesterday that a friend sent me that was written just in the last handful of weeks. It was a really long article all about how they haven't been hit by a storm in a long time, and everything they've been building and doing there has been not in anticipation of a big storm, but that if a major hurricane were to hit, that could wipe out that city in massive ways. And that's exactly where this thing is heading for.
That's so crazy. I have a bunch of kind of notes that I wanted to talk about what Florida and their government is doing right about all of these things. A lot of gas stations and stuff and stores are doing this thing called price gouging. I don't know if you guys have...
No, I know exactly what that is.
Okay, so price gouging, and they've
it's
had
the worm again.
so
It's
many
the worm.
fucking calls about people overpricing. I would say like selling cases of water for $75. I read.
Oh my God.
That's so fucked up. That's
It
so
is.
fucked up, and I'm glad that they're being so tight about it. And
so
then,
the government's cracking down, essentially saying this is fucked up. Yeah, good.
absolutely.
Did you see pictures of people in supermarkets taking
My
all their
mom
water
sent me-
singularly so that they could resell them to people?
Yes, put
Wow.
up my pictures that I sent to you.
Okay.
So my mom sent me photos of stores, and just that's the bread aisle. They have
Okay,
like...
so wait. Okay, let's start.
Let's start there.
Okay.
So they have like... We're in preparation, like everyone's getting their fuel. There's notes on the sides of the gas pumps saying like we're gonna be closed on these dates, like don't come here.
Right, I see that
They're
they've
like taping down their
they've taped down the trash cans to the
cans.
pole.
like
Oh,
saran
yeah, that
wrapped
one's
and
funny.
whatnot. And then going down, that's a bread aisle that's completely fucking empty. And my mom's just talking to me how scary it is. And then if you go down more, that's a completely empty water aisle. Just trying to go to a store and waiting in line for hours for like them to get more shipments in.
Right.
And people, like, they've limited it to you can only take 2 cases of water now
Right.
per family, because people are
Yeah.
just taking all of it, you know?
Yeah, I saw a picture of someone with a shopping cart, and the whole underneath part was crammed in water bottles. The entire cart was crammed, probably like 4 feet tall. Like it was nuts. They basically stole all the water. I mean, I guess they didn't steal it, but they took it.
They
from
hoarded
people
it for
Right.
themselves.
who really needed it, right?
Oh, yeah.
And that's to sell, right? They're thinking they're going to make some money off this because you don't need that much water to live through a storm.
Oh,
you know, it's
people.
horrible.
You never
Oh,
know.
people.
You never know, but positive things. Let's think about the
All right.
positive things. Let's fuck those people. Let's think about the positive things.
All right.
The government has the highway patrol, like, I guess, ushering and escorting all of the fuel trucks, which is awesome, and to get shipments for these, because people need gas to get out of here. Also, they're waiving the toll fees, and there was a statement said, I have this, it was the Florida sheriff warns sex offenders that people with warrants at shelters will be arrested. I'll just quote it. It's not too long, but Polk County Sheriff Grady Judd said, if you go to a shelter for Irma and you have a warrant, we'll gladly escort you to a safe and secure shelter called the Polk County Jail. Just making sure,
Wow.
like, there are so many families that are going to these shelters, and I'm happy that they're making them safe spaces.
Right,
you know?
right.
I believe that they were also opening up the freeways in one direction, so both sides were heading north.
Mm-hmm.
Oh wow.
Because there's only
awesome.
two. There's only two major.
That's
I guess
smart.
I should call them freeways.
that
There's
is
two
smart.
major highways. I think they call them turnpikes, or I
Yeah.
don't know. But there's two major ones going north, and I believe they opened them up that way.
That's a really smart idea.
Right.
There's kind of a flip side to the things they're doing, right? Though, because, and I don't want to derail if you have more of this stuff right now, Cody. But like I'm thinking about the stuff
Sure do.
they're doing correct.
I sure do.
Then I'll be brief then. It's amazing to me how government suddenly becomes sensible when there's an actual real catastrophe and they try to do all the right things and all that stuff
It's
makes
a good
sense,
observation.
right?
Yeah.
But this is the same governor and the same conservative state that has been not allowing their own institutions to use words like climate change or to do any of the prep work that's necessary to actually protect themselves from weather events that are arguably, if not caused by climate change, hurricanes are not caused by climate change, but are enhanced,
Yes.
right? Because warmer
Sure.
oceans
That's a
and
good way
things
to
like
say
that are
it.
what feed these things. It's not a good idea to lack preparedness, because this is something that I guess no matter what your belief system is about it, the Earth is warming. It doesn't really matter if it's the sun or it's humans or anything else. They know this. The Earth is rising. This is something that in the Tampa Bay article
The
I
seas
read
are rising,
right
you mean?
there. I'm sorry. The oceans are
the Earth
rising.
is rising.
And,
The
and
flat
so,
Earth is rising.
Yes.
Right?
the flat Earth.
very quickly, and that's why we
Yes.
have gravity. But yeah, it's just a bizarre thing to me that so many of these guys are in government, that they're promoting stupidity on a scientific level. I mean, in Florida, again, it was the state where they said citizens could decide to raise an issue with what they have in their textbooks. And then start the process of possibly, I don't know, getting removed or making changes. These are people having problems with things like the theory of evolution, which is a scientific fact and
Right.
a theory, but a
Right.
scientific theory is not what we call theory in normal speaking. But these are facts, right? So I guess I was just thinking about that because they're doing these things that make so much sense, that are common sense, that show reasonable leadership. But this whole backdrop to it is insane, where it's just failure of all those things, and it's hard for me to reconcile how both of these polar opposites can exist at the same time.
Exactly.
yeah.
It's like
Right?
nothing fucking matters as soon as the emergency hits. Like they just go down to their primal instincts of survival and caring for people,
Right.
which is awesome.
I really don't understand what that is about human beings. Why again, it's cognitive dissonance, and I bring this up so much. And my best example of that is if you had asked the German people 5 years before Hitler came into power, do you think someone could come into power and murder millions and millions of people? Oh no, never gonna happen. Couldn't happen. It's that mechanism in the brain that will not allow us to see things, see possibilities, because things have always just been a certain way. Like we just we're so resistant to change. We're so resistant to these ideas that may like affect our way of life until they happen. Then we're like, oh my God, what the fuck? How did this happen? It's like,
right.
we have ways of predicting some of this stuff, and we're still ignoring it. What is that sickness? It's like a sickness.
It's like as soon as it when it's not happening to you, it's out of sight, out of mind. Like
Right.
you don't even have to fucking worry about it because it's not happening right there in front of you.
Yeah, it's like it has to
Yeah.
happen to you right then and there for you to be like, oh, wow.
Like we need
Yeah.
to do something.
Out
yeah.
of sight, out of mind. It's kind of funny because it brings me back to one of the things I wanted to bring up in this discussion. It's actually something I have a link for. So if you guys can open it, it's called Vanishing Beach.
Oh fuck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've heard about the crazy sea level rises and falls and stuff
This
because
is
of
nuts.
hurricanes. This is something that this is why coastal areas will get flooded, because the hurricanes they generate a lot of pressure and a lot of other forces, and so
I've gone
they'll-
from my
Sorry, hold on.
diploma
Try.
to my
There we go.
Yeah,
Let
so-
go. Keep talking. This ad's gonna
yeah,
play.
that's probably. Okay. So what happens is it can create a bubble in the ocean, right? It can make ocean levels rise in ways that would not normally happen, right? Now, what you don't think about so much is that if the ocean's rising significantly in one place, it's going down somewhere else, right? So the power of hurricanes creates these sort of localized changes
They just
in
suck it
how
away.
high the ocean level is, right? So if it's going up somewhere, where's it going down? Never really thought about it. Never really
Right.
pictured it. I understand the concept, right? What we have here, and when it's available, just
Yeah, it's
play
up.
it.
It's
It's
playing
playing.
right now.
Yeah. It sucked the water away from shorelines.
That's
Like,
crazy.
Here, let me
There's-
borrow this water.
This is a story about mail and packages.
I hate
And
ads.
it's
I
also
hate
ads.
ads.
so basically, it's Hurricane Irma is literally pulling the ocean away from shorelines. And in the Bahamas, it looks like a huge bay or entire ocean is gone.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
all the water is gone.
that's
it's
insane.
scary.
It's
And,
insane.
you know, you hear about like things like this when you see disaster movies and there's a tsunami coming, or maybe even in real life to some extent when a tsunami's coming, it's pulling the water back. This is beyond anything
Yeah,
I have ever imagined.
I've never seen anything like that before.
That's crazy.
I mean, you can't even see the coast anymore.
Yeah, let's go back
Like
to
it's
that
like
picture.
it's like an ocean suddenly vanished. And I think this illustrates, I think, in some pretty amazing ways. Maybe more than the pictures that we have of cams, you know, showing crazy,
Wind and
storming,
storm.
because we expect that, right?
right.
But have you ever noticed a hurricane make an ocean disappear?
No, this would be a first for me.
And
It's
so,
crazy.
you know, out of sight, out of mind. I'm certainly not going to forget this.
Right,
No.
yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
And that's how big this thing is. I think they were saying this thing's like 400 miles wide or something. I think Florida is 100 and something miles wide.
That's crazy.
That's crazy. And I've been
So
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry? No, go on.
Well, I'm kind of going back to where we were before, but I've been checking in with my mom about just what's been going on. What is it like there right now? And she's like, okay, where she is, it's just kind of raining, and it's going to really hit them at midnight. But she's talking to me about, so she has a friend who has a son in Miami who's on a fucking cruise ship that they didn't bring in,
Oh man.
and like has not been responding or anything. And
On a cruise ship?
on a fucking cruise ship.
They've let people stay on a cruise ship
Yes.
to a hurricane?
Yeah. Why?
Dude,
why
does
are
a
they
cruise
doing
ship,
that?
like, can a hurricane sink a cruise ship, do you think? I mean, they're so massive. They can take
Well-
massive waves because they're just so...
What, is it
So
out in
huge.
the ocean? Is it on dock?
It's in the ocean.
It's just out.
They're doing rescues apparently, but some of them they haven't gotten to yet.
Yeah, it seems.
I mean, I can
don't
understand
know.
with the
I don't
change
know
of the
what-
storm because it was supposed to really hit Miami and it didn't hit them as hard. So they probably like
We
weren't
don't know yet.
anticipating. Yeah, we
It's
don't
still
know yet.
going to hit. I mean, Miami.
Yeah.
One of the cams we looked at earlier of Miami didn't look that great,
Did
and this
not
is all
look too
just
good.
starting to hit.
We have, Profi and I have one friend down there who lives in Jupiter as well, which is just a little bit north of where it's all happening. And he's buckling down for it as well. I hope that Brett, so if you, well, hopefully Brett, if you made it and you see this podcast, we want to let you know we were all thinking of you. So
Yeah, big love
Yeah.
for you, man.
To anyone
Safe.
out there.
yeah, and
too.
anyone out there.
Yeah, but we know him, so fuck everyone. No, I'm just kidding.
Fuck.
But you know, the thing is, Jupiter actually is one of the cams that we have selected to look at that really isn't working anymore. So
Yeah.
whatever it is, I mean,
Well, we love you,
It's-
Brett. We hope you're going to be okay.
absolutely. Yeah, this hurricane is crazy, and I want to kind of go back to, because I'm thinking about where we started here. This is the very beginning of the hurricane season. This is just the first punch that the Earth has given us, and as we talked about, there's like 4 now in the last handful of weeks. One image that I have that is kind of interesting, I thought. And if you bring it up, it's called 3 Hurricane Image. And it shows the Earth with what's happening right now. Now, this is a couple days old. This is when Irma had not yet gotten as far as Cuba. It's a couple days ago. But behind Irma is another hurricane that's starting called Jose.
Right.
I don't know what they think the trajectory is going to be right now, but it looks like it's turning into something pretty big. And then if you look over to the left of Irma, I guess, which is easy because they're
There's
labeled
another
in the
one in
picture,
the Gulf of
there's
Mexico.
Katia. Yeah, and that's right off the coast of Mexico. So, right above Mexico is Texas.
Yep, it's
What if
gonna
this
wipe
thing were to
them out.
spiral right back into Texas?
Oh my
Jesus.
God.
So this is really interesting. I don't know for sure if this is totally novel, as it not happened before, but to have three
I've
hurricanes
never heard of
all
that
look
happening.
substantial all at the same time, and this just a few weeks ago was Harvey.
Mm-hmm.
So this was almost 4 hurricanes at the same time.
Right.
And they're all, well, 2 of them that we know of at least now have caused substantial damage, and who knows what the other 2 will do. So if this is the start of the season, when we were talking about in the beginning, the end of the world and biblical prophecies and all this
Right.
craziness, what's the rest of the season going to be like?
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
We have an angry ocean right now. And,
Sure do.
Yeah.
Angry Earth, angry
I can't blame it.
environment.
I can't blame it. Human beings we just don't treat things with any respect at all. Some people do. There are some good people. I just want to say, if it ever comes off that I hate all people, I don't. I just, I
does
think
a lot,
it does.
actually.
I just get frustrated. I just get frustrated with the insanity,
Yeah.
like the same
Yeah.
things over and over. Like after a while, I just lose my patience for it. My tolerance for stupidity. It's hard for me to speak kindly about people who continue to do the same things over
Right.
and over. It seems insane to me, and I just don't have any. I don't say love left. I just don't have any
You know what it is,
patience
though?
left
You're
for it.
skeptic.
I don't know if this will help, but I think, at least for me, it helps to keep in context sort of the driving forces behind the stupid things we do, right? Like humanity does stupid things. Let's say our dependence on oil or our dependence on other things, these habits that seem so infuriating that, at least from some points of view, ones that probably most of us agree with, are maybe fueling or making problems like this bigger. What's connected to all of that is like people's only ability to eat, society's only ability to generate production. Like, these aren't easy problems to fix. You can't just remove oil. You can't just
Right.
change
Mhm.
farming.
Right.
You can't just, a lot of these things that we're doing
There
that
need to
are
be
fueling
shifts.
huge problems.
But so
we can't stop doing without millions and millions of people
agree.
dying, right? So
I agree with that, though. But the
that's a tough
argument, though,
problem.
there's still so many people who don't even agree that there's a problem to begin with.
That's true. And
That's
most
what
of
I'm
them seem
talking
to be-
about. I'm not
most of
talking
them
about
seem to be in the United States.
Right,
Have
right,
you thought about
exactly,
that?
dude. I'm not
How
talking.
embarrassing is that?
I understand that this is a
Fucking
slow process,
embarrassing.
but the fact, it's even a slower process because we still can't even agree that there's a problem. That's what
Well,
I'm
you know what,
talking
though?
about.
Most of us can. There's a handful, more than a handful. There's a small part of our uneducated population who believes this shit isn't real. And who are the people that are telling them that? A small handful of completely scientifically illiterate, fundamentalist, crooked as
Who
fuck
happen to be running
Republicans
everything
in our government. Yeah.
And who happen to be running everything. It's a really
astonishing.
sad state of affairs, and it's sad. But like, I'm just at this point, I almost just don't want to be
It's-
here anymore. I just watching it
crazy.
unfold. It's just like, it's just not.
And you know what? Even if we remove the other parts of the politics out of it, right? You can say with accuracy that the people, just on a purely scientific level, everybody could have political ideas, and we're not going to hash those all out here.
No.
But if there is a singular category of people in power who reject completely understood and accepted science as a rule, and they happen to do it while leading the most powerful nation on earth, it is our Republican Party and our conservatives. And it's astonishing that while on one hand, we're one of the most advanced civilizations that's ever existed. We send people into space. We do all this crazy shit. We made electric cars viable, which is something I think, Cody, you had an interesting news piece that we'll probably get into in a second.
Yeah, it's how I
about-
want to end everything.
Yeah. So we've done all these amazing things and created this amazing progress, but we're the ones who have an actually powerful group of people that completely reject science, who personally
but are enjoying all the benefits of it every day.
they are, and they
Sure.
personally deeply believe in fundamentalist Christian explanations for reality that weren't even to protect some of the Christians too. Were not even Christian ideas until like the 1800s. Like this is homegrown bullshit
Yeah.
that we suffer from.
Right.
Christians in other parts of the world don't believe in a lot of that shit.
Right.
They don't.
Yeah.
This
We're
whole
like, we don't know those guys.
This whole end times crazy motherfucking shit that people here take seriously, that seems so like out of left field, is something we created. And
In
I
America.
wonder, this is American.
I
This
know.
is not Christianity. I say this because I've met plenty of Christians and know plenty of Christians that, while I disagree with them on theological issues, are very sane and very competent people.
Yeah.
You know, they might believe some things I don't think are completely sane, but they're generally pretty reasoned, right? But some of this extreme stuff is a very weird American thing. It's very late to the Christian scene.
Right.
It's in the 1800s that these ideas really started to take hold. And I think, and I know I've had this conversation at least with Scott before. I don't know if I've mentioned it more broadly, but one thing that explains this weirdness in America, I just have to throw it out there, is that we were actually founded by Christians who were so crazy and kooky that they got booted out of Christian Europe because no one could put up with their shit anymore.
Right. Like the Puritans and,
that's-
the Quakers.
Exactly. They came here because of religious persecution,
So
which
the
was
fucking
actually
crazies.
everybody there was like giving them a hard time because they were fucking nuts.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Well-
they came here and birthed American fundamentalist Christianity.
Yeah, but you know what? A lot of the
Love it.
founding
So weird.
forefathers were very adamant about leaving religion out of all of this.
Later, because they were the upper class of the 18th century that had started to adopt a very humanistic point of view. Right. They were interested in sciences and all these things,
Right.
which is why most of them were considered. A lot of them were considered deists and were more Masons. They had spiritual ideas and stuff, but they did not believe that somehow religion
Right.
was contrary to what we could find out about the natural world.
Right. Gotcha.
They were logical. And I think a lot of our founders were that. And they used sometimes a lot more Christian words because it was sort of the way you talked at the time, but their belief systems were way more grounded. You know?
Well, Cody, what's the last thing we're gonna end on here? Tesla did something cool, right?
Well, I wanna end on like these three things. I kind of want to really like we're talking about like the government and how they've kind of fucked up, but we have kind of companies coming in who have the right mindset and are swooping in and helping our people, which is fucking awesome.
Very good. Yeah.
So Tesla is one of them, and I have an article that I sent to you guys, and it's in my notes. It's where I have it highlighted up above a little bit.
Oh, it's not this one.
Negative. That's
Oh.
that's one of them,
Okay.
which
Okay,
isn't
I'll
that
get to that.
important.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
That
That one that I have the square
is
on
it
right
this
now.
one? Oh, okay, this
there.
one.
Okay, so what Tesla is doing for those who own those vehicles, they've extended the radius of the battery pack. So the reason why these battery packs kind of have a limit for charging is because it makes the battery extend longer. But in this emergency situation, Tesla can remotely extend the range of the vehicle so that they can travel further without needing to charge
That's
to
awesome.
escape the hurricane, which is fucking amazing.
Very cool.
It's really awesome that we have the technology to do that, and I'm really fucking happy that they're doing that. Another company that is doing something amazing and I really want to talk about is Airbnb. Airbnb has been they do this a lot for natural disasters. They have a really great disaster help system kind of going on. So for Hurricane Harvey, they did this, and now for Hurricane Irma, what they've been doing is setting up a network of shelters in people's homes where they're opening up to take in people who are trying to escape, which is
that's
awesome.
awesome.
And they'll do it for free, which is wonderful, and I love that.
That's very cool.
And the last thing I think I want to touch on is donations. So if we can't physically be there right now to kind of help people, which nobody should be there helping.
Right.
Nobody should be putting themselves in danger
In the
right
line
now.
of fire, at least.
But money donations or time donations or work donations afterward, make sure if you're doing money donations and you're not around the area, look and research the site, because there are a lot of people creating Kickstarters and whatnot to fund money for this that are really faulty and they're not actually
Yeah, it could
legitimate.
be scam
So,
artists, right?
Yeah, it's scam. So
The
just
worm.
just
It's
make
the worm
sure.
again. All right.
It's the worm. It's the tsunami worm or the hurricane worm. So just make sure that where you're donating and putting your time and money to, you're doing it to a legitimate source.
Are
You
there
can
any
find
specific
those.
websites that you recommend that people
You
look
can
up?
honestly, just if you do a little bit of research, it's not even much.
Right.
If you go to any news stories, like big, like New York Times or whatever, they
Right.
have, you can donate here,
Like
and whatnot.
legitimate
legitimate
places.
ones where they've
Okay.
researched and whatnot. So just make sure that donate if you can, anything.
Cool.
Care for your fellow people.
Yeah.
We're going
Yeah,
through
I
hard
agree.
times out here with everything.
Yeah, it's definitely, we got to start coming together on some of this stuff, because
Mm-hmm.
the more we continue to divide ourselves, the harder it is the harder it will be to deal with these problems, and the longer it'll take to recover.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
Yeah, it would be nice if we could just put aside some of the political divisions just to handle things like infrastructure, like practical stuff.
I agree.
Make sure we're ready for things like this. We can spend all our time arguing about political philosophy while people are not dying because our bridges don't work or our levees are failing or
everyone
You know,
wants
our
to place
cities
blame,
can't
and we need to stop blaming and just start acting.
Yeah, just fix the fucking problem. Just move forward, because going in the past isn't really gonna help
Yeah,
us.
we could point fingers and blame each other after we fixed it, because then it's a mental exercise, right?
Yeah.
But like right now, there's people who die. I mean, there's people who've died in Florida already. Luckily, there's only a handful. As of now, it's relatively minor, but
All
Hopefully,
right.
this is a wake up call for people of like how we do come together when this shit happens, and how we do come within rational mind and sound
Absolutely.
thoughts
Yeah,
to
exactly.
help
Yeah.
and
I
do
agree.
this.
so
So in
be
the
safe.
future,
Yeah, I hope
Be
everyone's
safe.
safe out there, and we'll see you guys soon.
we love you.